A woman leaves her seemingly unsuccessful husband for a life of wealth, only to discover too late that the man she abandoned was secretly one of the richest and most honorable billionaires in Phoenix. Please subscribe my channel. The truth is, Priya Anand spent most of her childhood wanting a life that was never hers. She grew up in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Mesa, Arizona. The walls were plain, the furniture was old, and every dollar her family earned had a purpose before it was even spent. Her father worked the same government clerk job year after year. He left home before sunrise. He returned after sunset. And every evening looked exactly the same. Dinner. The evening news. Sleep. Then repeat. To most people, it was a respectable life. To Priya, it looked like a prison. As a little girl, she would sit by the apartment window and watch expensive cars glide through the streets below. She imagined the people inside laughing, traveling, buying whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. They looked free. And freedom was all she could think about. As she grew older, that feeling only became stronger. In high school and college, social media made everything worse. Every day she saw pictures of luxury vacations, designer handbags, ocean view resorts, and perfect couples smiling beneath golden sunsets. She would stare at those photos long after everyone else had stopped scrolling. A question always echoed inside her mind. Why do some people get everything while others spend their lives struggling? Slowly, that question became a belief. Money was the answer. Money created happiness. Money created respect. Money created freedom. Without it, nothing else mattered. At least that was what Priya convinced herself. Her father often tried to teach her different values. He talked about honesty, hard work, loyalty, character. But those lessons felt small compared to the glamorous world she dreamed about. I will never live an ordinary life, she promised herself. Years passed. When Priya turned 24, her father approached her one evening with news. He had found a potential husband. A respectable young man named Caleb Moore. The families arranged a dinner. Priya arrived with cautious hope. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe life had finally decided to reward her. Then Caleb walked into the room. He was polite, clean-cut, quiet. Nothing about him stood out. His clothes were simple. His smile was modest. His car, parked outside, was an aging Honda with faded paint. The moment Priya saw it, her heart sank. This wasn't the future she had imagined. During dinner, Caleb spoke kindly to everyone. He listened more than he talked. He treated her parents with genuine respect. But Priya barely noticed. All she could see was what he didn't have. No luxury watch. No expensive suit. No signs of wealth. No signs of the life she wanted. As the evening ended, Caleb thanked her for meeting him. His eyes were sincere. His voice was calm. And for a brief moment, Priya felt guilty. Because there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. The problem was that he wasn't the man she had spent years dreaming about. As she watched him walk away, a strange feeling settled in her chest. Not excitement. Not hope. Fear. Fear that this ordinary man represented the ordinary future she had spent her entire life trying to escape. And without realizing it, Priya made the first mistake that would change everything. She began measuring a person's worth by what they owned instead of who they were. Sometimes the most expensive mistake begins with the cheapest assumption. The first few months of marriage were quiet. Not exciting. Not glamorous. Just quiet. Priya moved into the small rental house Caleb called home. It sat in an older neighborhood on the edge of Phoenix, far from the luxury communities she used to admire online. Every morning, Caleb left for work before she woke up. Every evening, he returned with the same gentle smile. He never forgot to ask how her day had been. He never forgot important dates. And somehow, he always seemed to notice the little things. When Priya had a headache, he lowered the television volume without being asked. When she was tired, dinner would already be waiting. When she caught a cold, he drove across town late at night just to buy her medicine. The strange thing was that Caleb never acted like these things were sacrifices. To him, they were simply part of loving someone. But Priya barely noticed. Or maybe she noticed and simply didn't value them. Because every act of kindness was competing with a dream she couldn't let go of. A dream filled with luxury cars, expensive vacations, and a lifestyle she believed she deserved. One evening, Caleb came home carrying a small bouquet of flowers wrapped in plastic. They weren't expensive. Just a simple bunch he had picked up at a gas station. He smiled as he handed them to her. "I saw them and thought of you." Most wives would have found the gesture sweet. Priya forced a smile. But inside, disappointment settled over her once again. Why can't my life be more than this? She placed the flowers in a vase and stared at them for a long time. To Caleb, they were a symbol of love. To Priya, they were a symbol of limitation. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. And the gap between them grew wider. Not because Caleb changed. Because he didn't. He remained patient. Loyal. Dependable. The kind of man who kept every promise he made. The kind of man who would stand beside someone during their worst days. But Priya was measuring him with a different ruler. One based on status. One based on wealth. One based on appearances. Every time she opened social media, the dissatisfaction returned. Friends posing on yachts. Designer shopping trips. Luxury resorts. Perfect photographs of perfect lives. And each image felt like proof that she had settled for less. One evening, her college friend Jade called from a beachfront resort. The sound of waves echoed through the phone. Laughter filled the background. "My husband surprised me with this trip," Jade said happily. "We're staying another week." Priya looked around her kitchen. The same table. The same walls. The same life. After the call ended, she sat silently for several minutes. Then Caleb walked in carrying groceries. He smiled the moment he saw her. "Hey," he said softly. "Everything okay?" Priya wanted to tell him the truth. That she felt trapped. That she was angry. That every year of their marriage felt further away from the future she imagined. Instead, she simply nodded. But resentment had already taken root. And resentment grows quietly. It doesn't arrive all at once. It grows through comparisons. Through expectations. Through constantly focusing on what is missing. One morning, the frustration finally surfaced. Caleb sat at the kitchen table eating breakfast when Priya slammed her coffee mug onto the counter. "My friend's husband just bought her a new Range Rover," she said. Caleb looked up calmly. So, Priya repeated. "You can't even take me to a decent restaurant." The room became painfully still. Caleb set down his spoon. His expression didn't change. "We have a home," he said quietly. "We have food. We have each other." Priya laughed bitterly. "That's not living, Caleb." A shadow passed through his eyes. Not anger. Pain. The kind of pain that comes from realizing your best efforts are invisible to someone you love. For a moment, neither of them spoke. And in that silence, something important began to break. Not their marriage. Not yet. But the appreciation that should have protected it. Because when gratitude disappears, even love can start to look like failure. The saddest mistake is often not losing a good person, it is failing to recognize them while they are still beside you. By the beginning of their third year of marriage, Priya had stopped seeing Caleb as a husband. She saw him as an obstacle. An obstacle standing between her and the life she believed she deserved. The arguments became more frequent. Not loud. Not explosive. Just constant. Small disappointments piling on top of old frustrations. Every conversation seemed to end in the same place. Money. The one thing Caleb never pretended to have. One afternoon, everything changed. Priya ran into someone from her college years. His name was Trent Holloway. Back then, he had been just another student. Now, he looked like the kind of man Priya had always imagined marrying. A luxury car. An expensive watch. Tailored clothes. Effortless confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from never worrying about bills. They met for coffee. Then lunch. Then dinner. Trent listened carefully whenever she talked about her frustrations. He nodded at exactly the right moments. He made her feel understood. Or at least, he made her believe she was. One evening, as city lights shimmered outside a rooftop restaurant, Trent leaned forward and looked directly into her eyes. "A woman like you deserves more than an ordinary life." Priya felt her heart race. The words landed exactly where she was weakest. You deserve comfort, Trent continued. You deserve luxury. You deserve someone who can give you everything you've ever wanted. For months, those were the very words she had been waiting to hear. Maybe this is my chance to finally have the life I dreamed of. From that moment on, her decision was already made. She simply hadn't admitted it yet. 2 weeks later, Caleb returned home from work. The house felt strangely empty. Half the decorations were gone. Several boxes sat near the front door, and beside them stood Priya with a suitcase. Caleb stopped walking. The silence between them felt heavy. Priya, he said quietly. What is this? Without hesitation, she placed a large envelope on the kitchen table. Divorce papers. Already signed. For a moment, Caleb simply stared at them. His face revealed nothing. No anger. No panic. Just sadness. The deep, quiet sadness of someone watching a dream collapse. I'm done, Caleb, Priya said. I can't keep living like this. He looked at her. Living like what? Like we're stuck. Like we're never moving forward. His jaw tightened slightly. I've been working every day for us. I know, she replied. But effort isn't enough. The words hung in the air. Sharp. Cold. Unforgiving. Then she said the sentence that would follow her for years. I need someone who can actually take care of me. Not someone who comes home smelling like hard work and has nothing to show for it. For the first time, pain flashed across Caleb's face. Not because she wanted to leave. Because she truly believed those words. The room fell silent. Finally, Caleb spoke. Do you really think money is everything? Priya crossed her arms. I think money is freedom. She met his eyes without blinking. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. A long silence followed. Then Caleb slowly picked up the pen. His hand never shook. Without another argument. Without begging. Without trying to stop her. He signed. The marriage ended with a quiet scratch of ink against paper. Priya grabbed her suitcase, opened the door, and walked away. Outside, Trent's luxury car waited at the curb. She climbed inside without looking back. The vehicle pulled away into the night. And just like that, she believed she had one. But had she? Back inside the nearly empty house, Caleb stood alone. The silence around him felt endless. For several moments, he simply stared at the closed door. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number from memory. The call connected immediately. It's done, Caleb said calmly. A voice answered from the other end. Understood, Mr. Moore. Caleb looked around the modest house one final time. Call the board, he said. I'm coming back. Less than 10 minutes later, headlights flooded the street. 5 black SUVs rolled to a stop outside the small rental home. Men in dark suits stepped out. One of them opened a rear door and lowered his head respectfully. Welcome back, Mr. Moore. Caleb took a slow breath. For 3 years, he had hidden his identity from the world. For 3 years, he had lived as an ordinary man. But that chapter was over. Because the truth Priya never knew was finally about to be revealed. The man she called a failure was the sole heir to a billion-dollar empire. And the life she abandoned was worth far more than she could imagine. Sometimes the greatest loss happens the moment you think you've found something better. For a while, it seemed like Priya had finally won. The apartment was bigger. The restaurants were nicer. The clothes hanging in her closet carried designer labels she had once admired through store windows. When she walked beside Trent, people noticed. And for the first few months, that attention felt wonderful. This was the life she had always wanted. Or so she thought. But something strange began happening. The excitement faded faster than she expected. The expensive dinners became routine. The luxury hotels became ordinary. And Trent, the man who had seemed so perfect, slowly became distant. His phone calls grew shorter. His messages became less frequent. Sometimes he would disappear for days, claiming he was busy with business meetings. Priya tried not to think about it. After all, wasn't this the dream she had chased for years? Then one evening, while scrolling through her phone, a headline caught her attention. A mysterious billionaire had returned to Phoenix. No one seemed to know where he had been for the last 3 years. Business magazines were filled with speculation. Television networks discussed him constantly. His name was Caleb Moore, the same name as her ex-husband. For a brief second, Priya laughed at the coincidence. Then she kept scrolling. The thought never crossed her mind. How could it? The Caleb she knew drove an old Honda and lived in a modest rental house. The Caleb she knew bought flowers from gas stations. The Caleb she knew couldn't possibly be the man dominating business headlines. Weeks later, the entire city became obsessed with one event. The Ashford Foundation Gala. The most exclusive gathering Phoenix had seen in years. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, investors. Everyone wanted an invitation. When Trent received one, he looked pleased with himself. "Looks like we're going," he said. Priya felt a thrill of excitement. This was exactly the world she had always dreamed of entering. The night of the gala arrived. The hotel looked like a palace made of light. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Marble floors reflected golden light in every direction. Women wore elegant gowns. Men moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. For a moment, Priya felt like she belonged. Then reality reminded her otherwise. At the VIP entrance, security stopped her. Trent's invitation was approved immediately. Hers was not. The guard politely explained that her name was not on the primary guest list. Trent barely reacted. Without argument. Without concern. Without even looking back. He simply walked inside, leaving her standing there alone. The embarrassment burned deeper than she wanted to admit. Eventually she entered through another guest process and found herself standing near the back of the grand ballroom. A sparkling drink rested untouched in her hand. Around her, powerful people laughed and networked. No one noticed her. No one cared. Then the lights dimmed. The conversations stopped. A voice echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chairman of Ashford Group and founder of the Ashford Foundation, Mr. Caleb Moore." The crowd erupted into applause. The curtains opened. And time stopped. The glass nearly slipped from Priya's hand. Her heartbeat crashed against her chest. Because standing beneath the spotlight was a man she knew better than anyone. Or at least she thought she had. Caleb. Her Caleb. The same calm eyes. The same steady posture. The same quiet strength. Only now he stood dressed in an elegant suit before hundreds of the most powerful people in Arizona. No. This can't be real. Her knees felt weak. The room blurred around her. Was this some kind of mistake? But it wasn't. As Caleb stepped toward the podium, every person in the ballroom leaned forward to listen. The respect in the room was undeniable. The admiration was unmistakable. The man she had called a failure was the man everyone else admired. Then Caleb began speaking. His voice remained calm, measured, confident. "We judge people by their clothes, their jobs, their cars, and their bank accounts." The room fell silent. "We assume we know their worth." His eyes slowly scanned the audience. For one brief second, they landed directly on Priya. And her breath caught. "I spent 3 years learning how wrong those judgments can be.
No accusation. No anger. No revenge.
Just truth." And somehow, that truth hurt far more. Because in that moment, standing among Phoenix's elite, Priya realized something devastating. She had spent years searching for value in all the wrong places. The wealthiest thing Caleb ever possessed was the character she failed to see. Sometimes the biggest shock is discovering that the treasure you wanted was the one you walked away from. The days after the gala should have been a turning point for Priya. They should have been the beginning of acceptance. The beginning of growth. The beginning of healing. Instead, they became something else entirely. Regret slowly transformed into resentment. Every news article about Caleb felt like a reminder of her mistake. Every television interview. Every business headline. Every photograph showing his success. It seemed as though the entire city admired the man she had once dismissed. And the more she saw him rise, the harder it became to face the truth about herself. Then came another blow. One morning, she opened a news article and saw a photograph of Caleb standing beside a woman named Noelle Parks. The two were attending a housing development announcement sponsored by the Ashford Foundation. Noelle looked intelligent, confident, composed. The kind of woman who seemed completely comfortable in her own skin. The kind of woman Priya feared she could never be. For a long time, Priya stared at the picture. A strange mixture of jealousy and shame settled inside her. Then her phone rang. It was Trent. One of the few people still willing to listen to her frustrations. At least, that's what she believed. When she told him how angry she felt, Trent listened carefully. Then he said something that changed everything. Maybe Caleb's image isn't as perfect as everyone thinks. Priya hesitated. What do you mean? Trent leaned into the idea immediately. You were married to him. His voice sounded casual. Almost harmless. You know things nobody else knows. The seed was planted. And once planted, it grew quickly. Over the next few days. Trent convinced her that exposing Caleb would somehow make things fair. That revealing his hidden identity during their marriage would make him look dishonest. That rumors about his relationship with Noelle might create public doubt. At first, Priya resisted. Deep down, she knew it was wrong. But anger has a way of disguising itself as justice. Maybe he deserves to feel embarrassed too. It was the lie she told herself. The lie that allowed her to say yes. Within weeks, stories began appearing online. Anonymous sources. Speculation. Rumors. Questions about Caleb's past. Questions about Noelle. Questions designed to damage trust. The internet did exactly what Trent expected. People argued. Comment sections exploded. Gossip spread quickly. For a brief moment, Priya thought she had regained some control. But strangely, the satisfaction never came. Instead, a quiet sickness settled inside her. A feeling she could not escape. Because somewhere beneath the anger, she knew the truth. Caleb had never tried to hurt her. Yet she was actively trying to hurt him. Then everything collapsed. 5 days after the rumors began spreading, Caleb announced a press conference. Reporters packed the room. Camera crews filled every corner. Trent arrived looking nervous. Priya stood quietly near the back. The atmosphere felt different. Heavy. Uncertain. When Caleb walked onto the stage, he carried no notes.
No visible anger.
No sign of panic. He simply stepped to the podium and looked out at the crowd. Then he spoke. I'm not here to defend myself. The room became silent. I'm here to show you something. A large screen behind him flickered to life. Suddenly, a video appeared. A coffee shop. A corner table. 2 familiar faces. Priya's blood ran cold. The recording showed her and Trent discussing their plan. Every detail. Every conversation. Every strategy. Every word. The room froze. The journalists stopped typing. The cameras kept rolling. And there was nowhere to hide. How do you escape your own voice? Trent stood abruptly. Panic filled his face. He moved toward the exit. But officers were already waiting. Within minutes, everything unraveled. Investigations began. Lawyers became involved. Questions turned into charges. The same media attention Priya once wanted now followed her for all the wrong reasons. And the worst part wasn't the public embarrassment. It wasn't the headlines. It wasn't even the legal trouble. It was watching Trent disappear the moment things became difficult. The man who had promised her a better life immediately distanced himself. Phone calls stopped. Messages ended. Support vanished. He protected himself and left her to face the consequences alone. For the first time in years, Priya had no one else to blame. Not Caleb. Not Trent. Not her circumstances. Only herself. And that realization hurt more than any punishment ever could. The moment we stop taking responsibility for our choices is often the moment those choices begin controlling our lives. 2 years later, Phoenix felt like a different lifetime. The headlines had faded. The court hearings had ended. The public attention had moved on to newer stories. But for Priya, the lessons remained. After the legal battles and financial consequences, she left the city behind. She moved to a small town in eastern Arizona. A quiet place where nobody knew her name. Nobody knew about the gala. Nobody knew about the scandal. Nobody knew about Caleb Moore. For the first time in years, Priya was completely alone with herself. Her new apartment was tiny. A single bedroom. Simple furniture.
No luxury. No designer clothes.
No expensive dinners. The life she once feared had finally arrived. And strangely, it wasn't nearly as frightening as she had imagined. She found work helping with an after-school literacy program. The pay was modest. The hours were long. But every afternoon, children filled the building with energy and laughter. For the first time in a very long while, her days felt meaningful. Not glamorous. Meaningful. There was a difference. The months passed quietly. Slowly. Patiently. And with every passing season, Priya began noticing something she had overlooked her entire life. Peace. Real peace. Not excitement. Not luxury. Not status. Just peace. One afternoon, while organizing books after class, her phone vibrated. It was a message from her mother. A newspaper photo was attached. Priya opened it. The image showed Caleb standing beside Noel Parks. Both were smiling. The headline announced their wedding. For a moment, Priya simply stared at the screen. The old version of herself might have felt jealousy, anger, bitterness. But those emotions never came. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Relief. A quiet happiness for someone she had once loved. He finally found the person who could see his value. The thought surprised even her. Tears filled her eyes. Not because she wanted him back. Because she finally understood what she had lost. That evening, she walked home beneath a desert sunset. The sky stretched endlessly above her in shades of orange and gold. The world felt calm. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to remember everything honestly. She remembered the small rental house. The simple dinners. The old Honda parked outside. The gas station flowers. The way Caleb always remembered exactly how she liked her coffee. The way he noticed when she was tired before she said a word. The way he quietly carried responsibilities without asking for praise. Back then, those things had seemed ordinary. Now they felt priceless. What is wealth, really? As she walked through the fading sunlight, Priya finally knew the answer. Wealth was not the size of a bank account. It was the presence of people who genuinely cared for you. People who stayed when life was difficult. People who loved without conditions. And Caleb had given her all of those things. She simply hadn't recognized them. Months later, she learned more about what happened after their divorce. She discovered that Caleb had quietly paid off her parents' mortgage years earlier. He had helped create an education fund for her younger brother. He had done those things without publicity. Without recognition. Without expecting anything in return. Even after everything she had done, he chose kindness. That realization broke something inside her. And healed something too. Because it showed her the difference between power and character. Many people can become rich. Very few become good. As the years continued, Priya built a simple life. Not a perfect life. But an honest one. And whenever she thought about Caleb, she no longer thought about the billionaire. She thought about the man sitting across from her at a kitchen table. The man holding a bouquet of inexpensive flowers. The man who had loved her long before the world knew his name. Standing beneath the evening sky, Priya whispered words she wished she had understood years earlier. I should have counted what mattered. The desert wind carried the words away. This time, the silence felt peaceful. Because the truth no longer hurt. It simply remained. The greatest treasures in life are often the ones we fail to recognize until they are gone.